Today on The Dead Life, I have a very special guest. Dr. Jeff O'Driscoll joins me today to share with you his experiences in the emergency room, witnessing what happens when a person dies and how it brought him to where he is today. Dr. O'Driscoll suffered the loss of his own daughter, so I offered to bring her through for him. We'll share with you some of the audio clips from his reading last Saturday, and we'll find out how hearing from his daughter affected him. If you want to leave me a message that might be shared on a future episode of The Dead Life in my Love Me, Love Me Not relationship segment, leave it at 802-DEAD-811. That's 802-332-3811. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison, on my Facebook fan page, and you can binge on my YouTube videos to watch readings, including episodes of The Dead Life. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to book a reading with me, go to AllisonDubois.com or email us at booking@AllisonDubois.com. Welcome back. You just carry such a deep love for your daughter, and you've honored her in so many ways. You know she would be very proud. And I do remember in the reading she talked about she felt like she changed the course of what you were going to do. Like she's a part of your work. She likes to go to work with you. So I have no doubt that's going to continue because she seemed very, not just attached to you as a daughter would be to a father, but she felt a lot like you. But then also she had this softness to her as well. But she was very clear on how she saw things and how she felt and wanting to help people and being heroic and self-sacrificing in her nature. But you're both so similar in energy. And I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but you really, really are. And I mean that as a compliment to you as a father.
My wife says that. My wife says that often, how much alike we were. And she was very left-brained, very science, medicine-brained. And yet when she read my memoir that I wrote about my personal spiritual experiences in the emergency department, she sent me a text and she said, "Dad, I didn't think I'd had any spiritual experiences, but after I read your book, I realized I've had a lot of spiritual experiences." So we were similar in that way too.
So why don't we go ahead and play the clip where she talks about that, the other side.
She said she'd always had sort of conversations with the other side in her heart. So she's making me feel like even as a little girl, knowing she was being protected, knowing there were people that love her, knowing there were people who passed that were around her. So I'm actually getting the sense that your daughter had some abilities of her own, but didn't realize that's what it was. It was just that inner voice that she'd listened to. But she talked about conversations with the other side. And it was a sense of knowing that she wasn't going to live to be old. Like it was a knowing feeling. She knew it. But there was also a feeling of serenity from the other side, as though everything was not only going to be okay, but that she was being sort of guaranteed that she'd be able to still see her family and protect them. And so I feel like there was a depth to your daughter that maybe was difficult for her to articulate. Maybe she didn't fully understand it even in the physical world, but this feels like even when she was young, she knew she wouldn't grow old. That's what she says. I knew I wouldn't grow old. I always knew.
Well, when she was 5 or 6 years old, she was sitting on my lap one day, and she told me how when she got scared at night, Jesus would come and sit on her bed and hold her hand at night when she was scared.
Right.
And then after I wrote my memoir about my experiences in the emergency department and published it, she read it, and she was a newborn ICU nurse by that time. And I remember she sent me a text after she read my book, and she said, "I didn't think I'd had any spiritual experiences before I read your book, and now I realize that I've had a lot of spiritual experiences."
Yes. It was always part of her.
So my sense with your daughter was just that not only was she soulful, but that she'd been communicating with sort of higher beings since childhood. And so maybe she didn't know how to put that into terms, but clearly that had happened. And it's why she had such peace at the end. It was that knowing and that guarantee that she wouldn't have to leave you, that she could still be part of the family. And they always say that when I bring them through. They'll say, I want to be part of the family, but they wait for us to tell them what we want from them. But her connection with you is so clear that you hear her when she makes a request of you. And so she knows to go to you. But I remembered she seemed a little unsure when it came to the brothers. Like, I'm not sure, like they're kind of hard to get through to. So I go through dad, and so I think you're going to find that throughout your life. She's going to be writing, co-pilot in your car. She's going to be that person that always is with you because you're the one that really does get her. And I had a strong feeling that she definitely loves her mom and respected both of you and loved both of you immensely. It just felt like you were going on a soul journey with her that only the two of you could go on. And that was what the connection felt like as she was coming through. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's the best I can describe it.
I resonate with that. And in fact, I actually was a little bit nervous about having a reading. As you know, I'd never had a reading before. You were the very first.
Right.
And one of the reasons I had reservations was I thought, Rachel already talks to me. She already communicates to me. If she's got something to say, she can just say it to me.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's a lot of emotion and things that can get in the way. And having an objective third person hear it more clearly, I think there's value in that.
Yeah. And I think that's really a medium's job is we are an impartial third party that has no skin in the game. We have no preconceived notions. So it's nice to have validation. So we just serve as validation for what you already knew to be true. So I want to go ahead and share her feather story, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, great.
She says, sometimes I drop you feathers so that you know I went to the good place. She's like laughing. She's joking with you, but she's just saying, I leave feathers for you so that you know that not just that she made it, but that she is quite cherished where she is and no need to worry. I feel like she's joking with you because she feels like a very, very good person with a very, very big heart. And I know how unfair it was that somebody so good would be taken. But I just love her humor and that she doesn't like to see you sad. So she's like, I drop him white feathers. I leave feathers everywhere for him. So pay attention to that because she seems to think it's funny. Okay.
Yeah, that's very much like her. And when I spoke about her at the Helping Parents Heal conference the night before I spoke, I added a slide to my slide deck, and it was a white feather sitting on my computer that happened in a hotel room all by myself with the windows closed. I went to bed, my computer was sitting there, and when I woke up in the morning, there was a white feather sitting on it.
Yeah, I really loved too that for her, the white feathers seemed to symbolize she truly is like an angel. Like her soul was like that she was so good. To where she almost wanted to be looked at on top of your tree. like the angel would represent her at Christmas time, and she'd be watching all of you. But the white feathers to her seemed funny because everybody knew she was good and went to a good place, but she was letting you know that she was good enough to actually be considered cherished where she was. And I love that. So after the reading, when you were telling me what she did for a living, it all made a lot of sense why she would be sort of that angel that would watch over the family and stay very present, protecting you.
Yeah, I don't think I told you during the reading, but my experience with that white feather on my computer happened quite some time ago. It happened before Rachel passed away. And I snapped a picture of it because it really struck me. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what to do with it. And the picture just sat on my computer for the longest time. And then I recently spoke at this Helping Parents Heal conference. I spoke to 1,000 bereaved parents who had had a child pass away. And the night before I spoke, I was moved upon to put that picture in the presentation and tell the story. And so it really was striking when you brought it up during the reading.
Well, and just so people know, first of all, if you've lost a child, Helping Parents Heal is an amazing organization. They can go to helpingparentsheal.org if they want some support in that community. But I had never been to the event before. And I know Mark Ireland because I read him 20 plus years ago and brought his son through. It's before the TV show. It's before all my books and all that. So it was just out of our house at the time. And he was very engineer energy, like very science minded. And I'm used to that because that's my husband's energy. But I just remember thinking at the event, wow, I came to see Mark, but I also came to see my cousin Jerry, who I only get to see every so often. And he was my cousin by marriage, but I liked him more than my cousin. So I kept Jerry. He was just like this really effervescent guy. He was very spiritual, kind of a playboy back in the day, just real charismatic. So I thought, and I decided last June, I'm going to go this year and I'm going to see Jerry. And Jerry died 3 days before the event. So I came to the event to represent both Jerry and I in the family, and that we care. And I knew he'd want to be there, which he was. He was there. But that's why I was there at that time, because normally I don't go to those things because, sometimes I don't want to be a distraction when people are trying to heal. And so I don't normally go to those kinds of conferences, but that's why I was there. And then when I was leaving, Mark introduced me to you, and I'm very glad that I met you. So we were only there 2 hours that day, and I didn't get to go in and listen to any of the speeches because I would have loved to have heard yours. But now I'm kind of glad because I wasn't in there, so I didn't see the feather.
Well, I don't think you know this, but I had something click probably 3 years ago, and I knew that somehow I needed to connect with you, and I didn't know how or why, and I didn't act on it because I'm sure you get many emails, and I didn't want to just be another email, but it didn't go away. It never went away. And so I was really grateful that we finally got to meet at Helping Parents Heal a few weeks ago.
Well, and I had the same gnawing feeling as soon as I met you that I'm supposed to know him. So I'm really sure that your daughter was orchestrating and saying, you are not going to not read my dad, and Dad, you're going to let her because I need to do this with you. And so it was meant to be.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I listened to a lecture that Mark Ireland gave on how to be a good sitter for a reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking a few weeks ago after we met and you offered to do a reading, I thought, man, I wish I would have paid more attention to Mark's presentation.
I love that he's adjusting people's energy and getting them to a place where they're going to get the most from the reading as possible. But fortunately, because I was trained in a laboratory with scientists years ago when I was in my 20s still, I knew what information people needed and what kind of information's minutia, that's really doesn't do anything for them. So I really listen to what the deceased that I'm bringing through has to say. And I try not to make it about me and my journey, but I make it about the information and getting it through accurately. So I think maybe your daughter picked me for you because I am both science-minded and soulful and spiritual as well. But I went to school to be a prosecuting attorney. This is not what I wanted to do with my career. I've got a political science and history degree that does nothing for me. But this is my path, and I accept that.
The other thing that kind of struck me during the reading was that you brought up something about children's books. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, she's already talked about books. It seems, I would have thought you'd be done with the books after you talked about that, but then you brought up the children's books, and you didn't know that I'd written 6 children's books, and I have a few cherished video clips of my daughter. And one of the ones that I love the most is her laying on the floor reading one of my children's books to her daughter, who was probably only a year old at the time.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And it's funny because I kind of was saying to her, we already talked about the books. And she was very clear, no, children's books. And I was, okay, I'll say it. But I felt kind of like I was expanding too much on a piece of information that had already been given. And I try and steer clear of that because I want to keep the reading tight. But then it ended up meaning something to you. And that's all that matters, that the person I'm reading knows what they're trying to say. It doesn't matter how I feel about it or what it means to me. It's all about you and your daughter. So I'm sure she wants those children's books expanded as well. You probably will end up having another book in you that's the feeling was that would be for children to understand loss should they go through it. So it felt like you were going to write a book that's actually going to help parents to help their children through grief. So just something for you to chew on there.
Yeah, something to keep in my mind. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. And so do you have any recommendations for other parents out there of what helps you move through your grief, staying distracted, keeping busy, writing books, journaling, more of connecting with other people that understand your loss? What's helped you?
I had a list of notes of things that I thought I might say when I spoke at my daughter's celebration of life. And the night before, she came to me and she said, "No, Dad, talk about miracles and gratitude." And people ask me, "How do you live in gratitude?" And I tell them, I say, it began for me within hours of my daughter's terminal diagnosis. I spent the whole night with her in the hospital. I came home to shower and change clothes before going back to the hospital. My wife stopped me and she said, "How long do we have?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe 1 to 5 years, depending on the response to treatment." And my wife just threw her arms around me and she broke into tears. And she said, "Really? We have that long?" Because she thought Rachel might be gone in days or weeks. And so we cherished every day. We had 6 months, and every day we could live and love and make new memories. We were so grateful for the 32 years and so grateful for an additional 6 months. We were so grateful for modern medicine that alleviated her suffering even while she was transitioning. We were so grateful for 2 wonderful grandkids that keep her alive in our hearts and in our souls, and for a loving husband that took such good care of her the whole time they were together. And the list just goes on and on. And when you live in gratitude and you think about the great things that you have instead of the things that you no longer have, it really helps me to process the grief and to move through it, not without missing her, not without crying on a regular basis, but even when I cry, I'm so grateful for the love that makes me miss her that deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. Tears are a way that we know we're alive, right? And I think we're lucky to have had the love at all because, there are people out there that never understand the kind of love that parents feel for their children. And I'd rather have my child for a short time than not at all. And I'm glad that you had that additional time with her to make the most of the holidays and of birthdays. She was talking about her birthday being important and don't forget to keep throwing me parties, keep celebrating my birthday. And she feels like somebody that would be missed by many. She also shows a picture of her on the wall at work. So it feels like they're going to try and memorialize her by hanging something up for her in a work setting for her that makes her happy as well. So she was just fantastic. So I think that's good advice for parents. I find with the parents that I've read, one of the things that does help them is having somebody to talk to, because sometimes it'll be the parents aren't together anymore, where you and your wife can lean on each other. They'll be divorced, or, one of the parents had already passed, their spouse. And to me, what seems to help them is being able to talk to people who have suffered the exact same loss that they have. So another dad that's lost a daughter, or a mom that's lost a son, because they need to be able to relate to somebody that when that person says, I feel your pain, I know how you feel, they know they mean it. And so I do find that helps them work through it. I've also had in readings for parents, the children will say, live for me, like you're my surrogate. No different than if a mother was pregnant with the child still. Be my surrogate. I want to travel. I want to go do the things I didn't get to do while I was alive, and I want to experience it through you. So parents can still live these moments where their children can smell the crisp air, in Italy by the ocean, or eat, when you eat the gelato, they can sample that taste if they want to. They can hear the music. And so they do live vicariously through us still, and they love it when we bring a picture of them with us and prop it up while we're experiencing some of these moments in life. And then when we die, they show us all the times that they were standing next to us when we were traveling for them or doing something in their honor, where they were next to us that whole time.
Well, my brother, I don't know if you know this, you probably don't, but my older brother died in a farm accident when we were young. And he started coming to me shortly after he passed. And he came to me decades later. He came to me many times, and too much for this program, but on one occasion he came decades after he passed, and he touched my arm when I was in meditation, and the whole room faded away. Everything was gone except this beautiful, profound, glorious place. And he led me through this place, gave me a guided tour of what I think a lot of people might call heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed me my life in review. And he showed me the days where I had changed trajectory in a significant way, and how he had intervened on my behalf on those days. And then he showed me the day of his death, but not from my perspective when I was a boy. He showed it to me from the perspective of my parents. And I experienced all of their grief and their horror and suffering and just the deep, unbelievable pain of my parents. And then after I'd experienced that, he said, go tell our parents not to be sad anymore. Tell them I'm happy, and I want them to smile when they talk about me.
It's true. They love hearing stories about themselves. And if we only are sad and suffering when we think about them or look at their picture, they'll actually pull their energy back because they think you feeling them there is hurting us. So when we laugh and when we tell funny stories about them, they love the funny stories, especially during the holidays around the family dinner table. When we tell those stories, they love it. They live for that. That's their favorite. So,
when Rachel's kids, her 8-year-old daughter and her 4-year-old son, lay on the hammock in the backyard with me, and we rock in the hammock, and I tell them, I said, I rocked in this same hammock with your mother when she was your age. And her daughter just loves to hear stories about her mom. She said, tell me more stories about mom, and we'll look at pictures and tell her stories. And she smiles. She's not in tears. She smiles and loves to talk about her mother.
It brings them to life for them. And especially with little kids that lose a parent, they don't have all the memories we have. So if we don't share what was mom's favorite color, what was her favorite stuffed animal when she was little, or your favorite memory of her in childhood, that sort of thing. If we don't tell them, then they never have that in their cabinet of information that they really need. I think it's actually a good idea for grandparents to record themselves telling stories about these, the person that's passed. Just tell all the stories you have until you're absolutely exhausted, and then that might be enough to get your grandchildren through the rest of their life until they see her again. So when my dad died, I heard a voice say, because I was very angry. I'd predicted his death. He'd die at 67 of a massive heart attack, and I sent him to all the heart specialists. They said he was fine. My dad was a professional ballroom dancer for 50 years. He was in great shape. And this voice said to me, you were given the gift of 2 years to say goodbye to your father. And it was true. He was 65 when I was told he would die at 67 of a massive heart attack. So I knew it, that how he was going to die and when. I tried to prevent it, which I put in my book so that people that think they could in any way have changed the course of somebody's death so that they know they couldn't, that there's some sort of plan or journey that person's supposed to go on that is bigger than us. It's bigger than us. And that's when I learned the lesson. It wasn't in my power. It was never in my power. Just because I saw it and it saved some people didn't mean I had that power. And so it was a big reality check for me. And then that same voice said, every day you wake up is a good day because you're a day closer to seeing him again. He's your present and your future. He's not your past. You didn't leave him behind. And it helped me get out of bed every day, knowing I was moving towards him, not leaving him behind me in the past. And so perspective helps too, I think. And I'm a daughter who's lost her father, and you're a father who's lost his daughter. So I feel like we bring both sides of the coin to this particular episode. And so I'm really honored that you trusted me enough to do a reading, because I know you never know what to expect in those situations. And it meant a lot. And I really liked getting to meet her and experience her energy, and that we got to share her today. So do you have a place where people can find you if they want more information about your work?
Yes. My website is jeffodriscoll.com without the apostrophe. But if you don't want to spell my name, you can go to helpingsoulsheal.com. That's also my website. I'm on social media. People can find me there easily.
Okay.
And I have my books available on my website. They're also available internationally on Amazon. And people can reach out. I have a thing on my website. It's called Lunch with Jeff. And I did it just today with a new client. Buy me lunch, I'll give you 2 hours. And we met for lunch, and we had a wonderful conversation about whatever they want to talk about, but it's almost always related about spiritual progress and being connected with our higher selves and honoring the intuition that comes to us, and how to honor our deceased loved ones. It's a great thing. It's one of the best things I've done. I've met the most amazing people.
That's so generous of you. That's amazing. I love that. What a great idea.
Yes, and COVID forced me to go online and use technology. So now I have clients in 12 countries around the world.
Wow. Well, I'm sure you're about to get a few more after this airs. So thank you for being here, Jeff, Dr. Jeff O'Driscoll, and sharing your journey with us. We appreciate your time, and I'm sure my listeners will be reaching out, and especially the men that are out there, the dads who lose children. It's nice to have a father on that can speak to other fathers. So thank you for that as well. And thank you to my listeners for tuning in. You can catch me next Tuesday for a fresh episode of The Dead Life. I'll have master astrologer Tom McMullen here to tell us about what we might see in the fall. I'm Allison Dubois. This is The Dead Life. And to all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.
Join us next week on The Dead Life. And don't forget to subscribe now to get notified of every new episode.